Hey guys, VaulSC here. We're going to take a look at a bat rep between Onyx and Haqqislam. The mission is supplies. This is not my favorite mission in ITS. Main reason I don't like it is that if you're playing a faction like Morats or Imperial Service and you get the first turn, you can fire your smoke grenade using your link team very reliably out into the middle of the table and obscure the objectives, and then your infiltrating troops just basically pick up the objectives and run off with the supplies. And for the rest of the game, since your opponent's got 3 turns to try and kill those troops and recover them, your opponent's having to spend so many orders moving and actually collecting the objectives. Having said that, it does add a little bit of balance to the ITS pack, meaning that you've got to build a list which wants to go first and actually capture objectives for this mission, but maybe has to do something very different in the other missions. So that is at least a little bit interesting. This game has been played on this particular table here, and let's just draw a little bit of a line. What color are we going to use? Orange. So I'm going to be deploying over here, so I'm going to put an Onyx over here. So that's where I am, and we've got H for Haqqislam on this side. I might even just reduce the cam out a little bit, and deployment zone is over here for Haqqislam. So with the side-on view, there is 1, 2, 3 objectives to capture. And think about it. You've got 2 classifieds to collect. Cool, you can get 2 points out of that. But if you have more supplies than your opponents do at the end of the game, you get at least 3 points. So it's really just about having more of the crates than your opponent does at the end of the game. Now, theoretically, going second can be advantageous because you can easily shoot the enemy model who's holding the objective. Also, if you move and grab the objective at the end, you don't have to move it anywhere, you just have to hold on to it. There's no retaliation turn if you're going second. So those could be reasons why going second is actually very good. So if you've got ways to prevent your opponent from running off with them, then great. But in most cases, this is one of these rare scenarios where going first can be a lot better, because usually the terrain is such that you can actually go and hide something. Let's say you pick up this this one over here, and then you move up to the staircase, and you walk up the staircase, and you go behind this little a billboard thingy here, and you go prone with your trooper there. What are they going to do to take that back? Well, they can bring drop troopers in, but the drop trooper can only land on the other side of the building and walk up there, but you may have that defended. They can send something from their side all the way over, but you might have it protected with mines or jammers if you play Haqqislam. So great mission for Haqqislam, by the way. Crazy koalas, mad traps, hidden deployment models, hackers, and so on. So once you've brought the objectives to your side of the table, it's a lot easier to defend than it is to attack. With all that in mind, I've got a list for Onyx which I've prepared, which should be reasonable in this mission. So let's get into the game. I am running a Malignos, who is in hidden deployment here, just overlooking the objective on my left. Just quickly before we jump into this, I'll bring up a very quick look at my army list. So quite importantly, running the Unidron Link team with the Plasma Sniper, so that's the best defensive one. It's got a better range bands than the missile launcher, that's why. The Spitfire is the best offensive tool in that link. You've got 5 dice, plus 14, ignores cover, you've got assisted fire, blah, blah, blah. The Malignos is really needed for this mission, just because you want an infiltrator, you want something which can press buttons reliably. Use Whip 14. All the cheerleaders in there, of course. We've got the double Noctifer missile launcher, which is an availability bonus that you can get in Onyx. And having both of them there either allows you to control a single lane with the double guy, double ARO, both of them dogged, do very well, or cover 2 separate lanes. So that can be very powerful in the reactive turn, especially later in the game. Obviously, the Nexus Hacker for putting up assisted fire, the Dr. Worm. The other Nexus is the Lieutenant. The Fractar is the only interesting choice about this list. I kind of like it, especially for supplies, because it allows you to actually fly in at the back, after they've captured one of their crates. So they've spent all of their orders moving their specialist up, passing the willpower check to open up the crate, move it back to their deployment zone. They think they're safe. They've just put themselves in a position which is actually better for you for moving the Fractar around. And because he can take an additional wound, it allows him to get into position more reliably, suffer an arrow, get through a chain rifle, and pick up their crate. So that can be quite an important play. Back to it though, my Malignos is on the left-hand side, just opposite this Hunzakut, which is about to go for the objective straight away. I've got a Noctifer missile launcher, which is just overlooking that exact same position that you saw the Malignos hidden deployed at as well. So once the Hunzakut goes for that, I'll be able to arrow with my my Noctifer. Bear in mind, obviously, the model is actually supposed to be flush against this wall here. It's not actually, you know, it looks like it's not in cover. It is supposed to be in cover. The other Noctifer is on the other right-hand flank, just covering the rest of the field. So it's got a line out here, and there's an objective situated here. The only disadvantage on this side is that there is some saturation zones in the form of those pot plant foresty type things, but that actually works well for the Noctifer in a lot of cases because he's still got one shot, whereas anybody shooting at him is -1 burst for the saturation zone. Having said that though, I am going to be up against a Jambazan HMG, so the HMG ignores the -3 from the forest, whereas I'm penalized by that, but the trade-off is that he's only got 3 shots to mow me down rather than 4, so it might take him longer to get through the dogged state of the Noctifer, and also the plasma Unidron sniper atop this building here. Okay, so let's have a look at my deployment zone in full. The link team is on the right-hand side. So this particular guy here is the forward-observing link leader. I'm about to put my lieutenant in a reserve model here. I'm just worried that he may have a FIDE, so I'm just holding back the lieutenant. There's a plasma carbine guy on the holding up the right-hand flank. This important Spitfire front man here, the plasma sniper there. This Nexus is a hacker in Group 2, not part of the link team. Dr. Worm is over here and also controls this helper snake. The Imatron landing successfully and here as well, and Icadron holding up the back line just in case somebody drops in behind. On the left-hand side, so this at this point you can see where the sniper was and the Nexus hacker and that Icadron we just talked about, but on the left-hand side there's an R-drone as well, Dr. Worm here with the other Imatron there. Left-hand flank, the other Icadron, right on the far left-hand side, able to use his flash pulse or flamers down this left-hand flank. The other Imatron landing successfully. HVT on the far left-hand side. We do know that there is a Malignos in hidden deployment there, easily able to walk out over here onto the objective later on, or to this objective in the center, mind you. And the other Noctifer is situated there. In fact, if I just go back to the previous photo, bear in mind that the positioning has the other Noctifer on this point here, just to double up with the plasma sniper in case they come after the plasma sniper. They're not expecting to have to deal with another arrow in the same order, so the Noctifer can potentially double up with that. Okay, in the middle of the table, my opponent's going first. He's put down a Hunzakut next to the objective, another Hunzakut next to the objective, also prone. This is a, what do you call these guys there? For deploying Hulka or something like that. They're like Gulams, but they have mechanized deployment. As a doctor, it's prone next to the objective there. So these guys are going to be making a full-on go at the objectives. We'll see how that works out for them, though. Into the deployment zone. So you got a Jambazan HMG to the far left, a Gulam sniper. There is a sensor bot with obviously ability to press the buttons and grab stacks. There's the Hulker we just talked about in the garden area. The HVT is here. He's got an Asawira Spitfire, but it will turn out later in the game that this is actually not an Asawira Spitfire. It is a one of those Holo Projector 1 guys. Maybe that's the Hulker that I'm thinking of. Can't remember what they're called. Oh, a Hafsa, sorry, is what I'm thinking of. There's a Gazimotewa here, and here, and here, and there's a fourth one further onto the right-hand side of the battlefield, a Bareed in this corner here, just entrenched into that bit. Okay, so what are we looking at? So there's the backline Gazimotewa, the Hafsa there. Here's the other Gazimuti was here, and we just talked about the Barid and the... there's a flashpole spot here. A Warcore. The Warcore is overlooking the alleyway where you can see the objective there. So that might help him protect against me coming along that side. Furthermore, there is Tariq with the Spitfire and his friendly Gazimutiwa and the helper bot, which belongs to the Hulker, which is over on this side of the board. So that is an attachment, might potentially be able to doctor some people. I put down my reserve model, realizing that I'm not probably not going to be up against a FIDE, so the Nexus lieutenant just deploys in the link team, takes them up to 5 members, and his reserve model is a total reaction bot, which again is just looking down the straight along alleyway, potentially up against my Malignos, but more importantly my my Noctifer. Now, if you look at this picture carefully, you may be thinking what I'm thinking, and that is that, hey, TR bot's just sitting there, and he hasn't factored any missile launches at this point. If I fire my Noctifer at that TR bot, guess what's going to happen? The TR bot, if it's in range, might need like 2s or 3s to hit, or even 0s to hit if I'm using surprise shot. But if I get a hit, the missile's going to hit Tariq as well. So that is going to potentially come up later in the game. Alright, game begins. Haqqislam taking first turn. He won the roll. He decided to go first. I was deploying second. So that means my reserve model was going to be after his potential FIDE anyway. So Gazimutua moves in, throws the smoke grenade down here. And this is actually going to be quite good for him, because if he can get closer and shift the smoke towards the middle objectives, he's going to be able to retreat through smoke. And if he gets 2 of the supply crates away, that's going to require a lot of work from me later on. To be fair, the Unidron Link team, if they move up the board with tons of orders, they're going to rip through the Haqqislam army with assisted fire and shock. I've also got the Fractar to come in from behind enemy lines and punish them from dragging their crates to safety, if I can get around the jammers, that is. So that could be a bit of a problem. On the right-hand side flank, he's just moving his Gazimutua around the side here. Alright, there's another Ghazi at the back, putting down smoke just in case he needs to move out with his Jambazan and potentially take on the Plasma Sniper. Although, not really the best thing to take on the Plasma Sniper at this point, because the Plasma Sniper is hitting on 2 dice on 14s, and the Jambazan 4 dice on 12s, or if it's through the forest, 2 dice on 11s. So 1 dice on 11 versus 3 dice on 12s, and I've got Dogged, so if he even fails one face-to-face roll, he could lose his HMG, and that's not really great. Okay, so there's a play happening here. He sees there's an opportunity to do a lot of damage, and brings on his Rajik. Now, I've spent a command token to reduce the order pool by 2. He's got a lot of troops out in the middle field, which need a lot of orders to crack the crates open, so attempting to go for the objectives and attack me with a Spitfire drop trooper seems a little bit like spreading the order pool too thin, but we'll see how this works out. The first order just moves barely into line of sight of the Unidron covering the right-hand flank, who's equipped with a plasma carbine. Now, I saw this and I thought, surely this is a mistake, because he's shooting at me with Ballistic Skill 12, +3 for range, -3 for cover, so 4 dice on 12s. And I'm shooting at him with 2 dice, 1 extra dice for the link, that is, so 2 dice. Ballistic Skill 11, +3 for the link, +3 for short range, so 17s on 2 dice. So if I get a single hit between the values of around about 12 to 17, which isn't too unlikely, or if he happens to roll fairly low and I get a number like a 9, 10, 11, or 12, and I win the face-to-face roll, he could go down onto the ground failing a BTS and armor save, even though he's got Dogged, and just die. Which means that he's squandering a couple of orders and an expensive unit for basically nothing. He's also got to crack me a couple of times because of Dogged and remote presence and all of that good stuff. It's going to make this point really hard to capture. The reward is high, though. If he shreds me here and he comes around further to kill the Nexus, well, that's my lieutenant gone. The thing is, though, we measured it and we found that he couldn't come into line of sight without being within 8 inches first. and that meant he wasn't hitting on 12s, he was hitting on 9s. So what happens here is I roll pretty well, get a couple of hits through, and he's just incinerated straight away. So that gives me a pretty good way to start the game. Then he moves his Hunsakut to the objective here, because you're not allowed to deploy in base-to-base with it, so he moves up to it. He's a marker at this point, so I delay with the Noctifer. Now that means that if he breaks out of camo to try and open the crate, I get a free missile shot. So instead of actually trying to crack the box open, he goes prone instead. So I'm doing that because I know it's going to cost him an order. What he can do is try and discover me with the Warcore with a really long shot, sort of Hail Mary attempt, and fails that. So, what he has to do now is move around with the Gazimatewa. That's this guy up here that you saw in the previous photo. So now, moving around the side, throwing the smoke grenade onto the objective. This is probably what he should have been doing first up, and successfully gets the smoke in there. So now he can actually get the Hunsakut in and grab it. But he's running out of orders to do this. Hunsakut successfully opening it on first go, rolling a crit 14, and it grabs it. We're using the CSU token to represent the supplies. Maybe the supplies were in fact the CSU lunch, the sandwiches, the Sammy pack, successfully stolen by the Hunsakut. In the mid-zone of the terrain, he's trying to lob a speculative fire smoke grenade over to the second Hunsakut, but doesn't manage to roll successfully to get that. Spec fire is -3 all up. So, we're left in a position where he's just sort of repositioning his Gazimatewa around closer to where the other Hunsakut is, and the other Hulka model just moving up to the objective, going prone, just trying to camp out next to it without actually cracking open the crate. I'm not too sure if the ITS requires you to do this, but we had an agreement before the game that the objective crates counted as a Silhouette 3, size, and as soon as you've opened the crate to get the stuff out of it, the actual piece of terrain disappears. So the box is opened and it sort of falls to the ground like a tent collapsing. The Hunsakut wisely using the remaining orders to retreat, thanks to the smoke, to safety, and putting down a mine there. So that camo mark you see is actually a mine, and it's quite well positioned as well, I must add, because we know that there's a Malignos here standing up. Now, if this Malignos activates at all, it's going to come into range of that mine straight away, which is unfortunate for me that he's done that. Maybe he suspected that there would be a Malignos. So we're going to have to remove that first. That's not a disaster, though. I've got some cheap throwaway troops I could use to trigger it. The Fractor could come in and just suck up a wound, since it can take 2 wounds, and then I can move the Malignos out. The only problem is that I can't really ARO with the Malignos, because I take the mine straight away if that happens. So quite a good move from the Hunsakut there. It goes over to my turn, though, and I haven't taken any casualties, really. So one thing that I can do here, which is quite awesome, is activate the Noctifer and declare a surprise shot at the TR bot. Now, it means his Warcore can try and flash pulse me for free. Fails that. He needs a very low number for that with the TO and the range and the cover. Unfortunately, though, even though the TR bot is reduced at -12, can't hit me, the missile needing a 12 doesn't hit. There's a reason why they call it a missile, because it keeps missing. Luckily, though, I've got about 5 orders to suspend in Group 2, so the first shot misses, the second shot misses, the third shot misses. The TR bot is firing back at me at this point, looking for very low numbers, but luckily doesn't get any hits through either. Finally, I managed to fire the missile, and it actually hit smack bang into the bot with like a 10 or something like that, and ba-boom, ba-boom. We get the template on the bot and on Tariq, and luckily, hard work pays off. Tariq fails 2 armor saves, doesn't manage to dodge to safety, and gets obliterated. So, with just Group 2's orders, we have succeeded in wiping out the TR bot and Tariq, which is a pretty big blow to my opponent there. Now, coast may be clear to move out with the link team, so we're heading out like this. There was a position I saw where I could have actually got an angle along the side where the plasma sniper may have been able to set up on the flank and actually snipe through and get the impact templates actually banging into Tariq and hitting the TR bot first along the side. Whoops, looking at the wrong picture. So you can sort of see here that if the shot comes through on this side with the plasma sniper, that may have allowed me. Wrong image. Okay, the plasma sniper may have been able to cause the impact template over there, which would have been equally lethal to Tariq, one would have thought, but that would require me moving out a lot further, and there's a lot of obstacles in the path of that. So with the Link team moving out, I'm trying to discover the Hunzakut in the center of the table, but the Spitfire fails to do so. So we're continuing to move out. The Plasma Sniper moving along here, the Spitfire moving along here, the 2 Carbines and the Nexus moving through, and we can switch the Link team at this point to a different person and try for the Discover again. In the meantime, the Nexus hacker and the other group also, with an order left, putting assisted fire onto the Spitfire Unitron, quite importantly. So now, with the Plasma Carbine guy showing up, we're able to move into position and then eventually eliminate him. Not before he puts down a mine, though, and that's quite a smart move because he knows that he's going to be losing the Hunzakut. So putting down a mine there has the potential to put one of the Unitrons to dogged state, ensuring that I'm not going to my second turn with 5 auras, 5 guys in the Link team. So eventually moving through and just blasting him with a Plasma Carbine. Don't have that many orders left, though, so as the Spitfire moves past the mine, I'm going to have to take a template hit. So, with very few orders left, we're just moving to a position where the Carbine guy can actually have a bit of a shootout with the Hulker and take out another specialist to make it a lot harder for him to crack open those crates. I had to take this order back, though, because I realized that if I brought him out here, there's a very, very thin line through here. It doesn't look like a straight line, but we measured it and actually is, where he could have shotgunned there with a light shotgun, and if he got any hits, he'd be wiping out this model and my lieutenant here if they moved directly past here through to cover. So, like, we looked at that, and before he declared his ARO, or at the time he declared his ARO, I realized, oh, I could have decided not to do that. Now, this is an opponent where we play, you know, with takebacks. This is not a tournament game. We practice a lot. There are a lot of situations where I let him have a takebacks if he came into my line of sight. He lets me have takebacks, which is very generous. You don't necessarily have to do that in a tournament environment, but in a lot of our games, we say, hey, look, if you came into the path of something that would have really damaged you, and you could have avoided that just by, you know, seeing that there and eyeballing it more carefully, we'll roll that back, so long as no dice have actually been rolled. So that's just the way we do it in our games. So in this case, very fortunate that we are playing that way, of course. So just have to put that out there. Unfortunately, though, the Hulker with suppression fire rolls a crit and puts me into dogged, so that's bad news already. Have to spend yet another order taking it down, but I eventually do take it down. And since I've got 2 models about to go into dead state at the end of this turn, I'm just moving into cover with the rest of the orders, and with the last order, moving out with the dogged Spitfire here to this position here while I've got the rest of the Link team milling around. So we've got this guy about to die, the Plasma guy sitting up behind the cover there, Lieutenant in total cover behind the crate, and Unitron with Carbine back here. So it's going to be a 3-man Link team after this. The Link leader's going to die, but I can reform the Link if I want to. And this last final situation, he's just going to go down with all guns blazing in all different directions with his Spitfire and hopefully get some damage with assisted fire. So let's look at his lines of sight. He barely avoided seeing the Breed, but he does get a shot off into the flash pulse, and luckily does manage to get a shot onto the sniper here. Now, shooting at the sniper gets like a crit dodge or something crazy, or passes the armor saves and tanks back into cover, and the flash pulse bot goes down. So really all I got there was, yeah, a kill on the flash pulse bot, so it wasn't worth it in the end, but hey, I was a little bit unlucky to not kill the sniper. So there's our final setup position. We've got the Nexus Lieutenant in a sort of precarious position, I might add, and the Plasma situated here, you can see along this way and along this way, but the sad thing about that is that the burst bonus is not really going to help, given that the saturation zones from the pot plants aren't going to be great. There is a guy with a Plasma Carbine which should be able to see to this point where the Jambazan is going to be showing up shortly. Alright, so my opponent's turn 2. He's trying to put down some grenade templates with the Gazimatiwa here to block the move around here. So basically we've got one Gazi putting down the smoke there, and that's going to block the other guys who can come around and getting hit by the Plasma Sniper from the Unitron Link. On the right-hand side of the table, you might remember this guy who's been coming around here, who previously put a smoke grenade down in the center and allowed for the setup of this mine. Now, unfortunately for him, he gets hit straight away by the plasma sniper down the end here, who shoots all the way along the corridor and zaps him to death straight away. So that's at least one thing going in my favor there. Elsewhere, we've got a Gazimatewa lobbing a smoke grenade at long range, and he does pick it up, even though he needs a 9 or something like that, and is able to put down a template. And quite crucially, this is going to be able to block off the line of sight between the Unidron link and the Janbazan, who can now shoot quite effectively at them because they're not a 4-man link anymore. They don't have 6 Sense level 2. So before that even happens, though, he's still got secondary orders from Group 2 with his Gazimatewa, which can move around here. And the problem with this is that he can fire his Emarat or his chain rifle at this group here, which is going to potentially kill my lieutenant, potentially immobilize and isolate my my plasma sniper. So I'm declaring a dodge with the lieutenant and shooting back with the plasma sniper and the carbine. But sadly, dice roll's not doing too well here. Doesn't manage to take out the Gazimatewa. Now, I did manage to dodge with the Nexus, but he's going to have another attempt at this because the damage just wasn't enough to kill him, which was quite frustrating. So with the second move in, the Gazi keeps coming at me, and I finally fail the dodge check with a Nexus and fail the armor save horrifically, and the lieutenant is dead. So I'm going to be going to my second turn with lost lieutenant, which is not wonderful. Janbazan now moving around. He's gunning down the Unidron, which does go into Dogged eventually, but shrugs off a couple of orders spent by the Janbazan and ends up okay there. I do lose the Unidron at the end of the order, but at least he sucks off a few different orders from the resource pool. The Hunzakut placing a mine. Now, hasn't quite learned his lesson here, and this is a mistake. He's going into total cover, and he's putting down another mine here just to help guard him from people coming after him. But if you guys are noticing what I'm noticing, if that mine is revealed, and if a Noctifer missile was to be shot at that mine, the template is going to be here, isn't it? And it's going to be clipping not only the Hunzakut, but the helper bot that belonged to that doctor as well. So probably not the smartest move to put the mine there, but it's quite an easy thing to forget about. And into the turn, we're going into suppression fire with a bunch of dudes. Okay, so there's the Gazimatewa there. Dogged is going to die. Oh, he's moved up with in the second group with the Bereed. Just getting into position to go for the objectives in his final turn. Now, that's a smart thing to do. It's one of his only specialists remaining. He's going to need that Bereed to go over there and actually grab some crates in case his other objective holder dies. So my turn, unfortunately, a loss of lieutenant, but what we can do with the Noctifer here is to actually declare a discover through here, and you can use your first shot skill to discover and shoot at something else. So discover's just like moving. It's just a short movement skill. And then he can shoot at the walker with the second attempt, with the second shot. Now, unluckily, I've tried to shoot this walker a couple of times and still failing to hit him, so nothing happens there. But the mine is discovered. So I can now spend a command token to turn one of my regular orders in Group 2 into a regular order and spend that on the Noctifer to shoot again and actually blow up the Hunzakut. And luckily, does manage to hit the mine successfully. So the... I think it was even a crit. So the Hunzakut not able to dodge, does get exploded by the template. The mine's gone as well. So that's an objective that he has to go and pick up. And to get there, he's got to go through the ARO line of a Noctifer. And if he doesn't pick it up in this next turn, my Fractar should be able to walk over there and pick it up. So that might be a free objective for me. There's also a Malignos which can go over there, but there's still one mine remaining which I've yet to discover, which I'll have to take care of first. So bear that in mind. Elsewhere, just using my irregular orders to move out with the Echidron and the other Echidron here and move up with Dr. Worm a little bit more. Put down a nullifier with the Nexus. That's about all I can do with this turn. The nullifier is quite important because I've got to choose a new lieutenant at this at the end of this turn. The only real person it can be is either Dr. Worm or this Nexus here. If I make it the Nexus, the Bereed can shoot a picture and then kill me and put me in lost lieutenant again, which would be game over. But putting the nullifier down there is a really helpful piece of tech preventing me from being hacked. So no killer hacking, my lieutenant is going to be safe. Should have really made this guy the lieutenant all along, to be fair. Okay, now it's his turn, and finally we get to see some action from the other Noctifer. So what he's doing right here with his hand, you can see in the photo, is he's positioning his Gazi-Matiwa, which is going to impetuous over the crates and impetuous towards my lines, and it puts him into line of sight of another Noctifer missile launcher, who, based on this little laser sight here we're measuring right now, can shoot directly past the saturation zone of the forest and avoid the -3 penalty. Gazi-Matiwa are impetuous, so they're not going to get cover, so I'm hitting on a 15 up against his smoke template. Oh, excuse me. So it's him throwing the smoke to block me on a 15, and I'm shooting him on a 15. All I was really hoping for with this, though, is to actually just land the hit. 75% chance of actually just landing it, because then the template would go down and it would hit the Bereed. Now, luckily, I did manage to beat the smoke roll anyway. So what happens is the Bereed and the Gazi-Matiwa both get blasted by the template. You can see I don't have a second Noctifer model available in my collection, so I'm using the combi rifle version, but ba-boom! Ba-boom! Rolling the 15, which is actually a crit. Sorry, I thought I'd rolled a crit against the Hunziker. It was just like a regular hit. This time I rolled the crit, which obliterates the Bereed and the Gazi-Matiwa, which gives me a big advantage in this game, because he's got no other specialists he can go after the crates with, except for his bot, his sensor bot. Now this next part's beautiful. The Bereed, the Janzaban, can just shoot at the Noctifer, which is exposed now, but he's got to go through the saturation zone. He's shooting 3 dice. He's shooting at long range. It's -3 for cover, -3 for long range. So range and cover, you need 6s to hit. 3 dice and 6s. I'm shooting back with a missile launcher. It's 9s through the forest. So 1 dice and 9 versus 3 dice and 6s. It takes him like several orders, but he finally gets me down to dogged. But I'm still there. I'm going to be AOing for the rest of the turn. So he thinks better of it, realizes he's not going to be able to get anything else done, and tries to make some last-minute breaks for it. Walker tries to move over here to try and pick up this objective, but gets blasted by the Noctifer, of course, in the distance. He tries to go for a long run with the sensor bot, doesn't even have enough orders to make it to the crate. The Noctifer miraculously misses him twice as he's walking forward in this desperate attempt. So hilariously, the sensor bot is actually alive as it moves out to the objective here. It's actually situated here. And interestingly, the sensor bot will now be able to ARO me with a flash pulse as I try to pick up the objectives. It turns out this guy was actually a holo projector 1, as we knew. So standing up, dodging the missile launcher, and he's now got an ARO with a rifle at least. So desperate times, desperate measures, no points on the board for Haqqislam. So, my final turn, I've got my lieutenant back. I realized the best way to go is to try and send in either the Malignos or the Fractar over to the corpse of the Hunziker and pick up the objective that he was carrying. Now, that mine is going to be trouble. I don't want the Fractar to take a wound from the mine and then a wound from the Hafsa. So I'm sacrificing Dr. Worm, just charging him in there, taking the mine hit, dying instantly, but it's for the greater good. He's been ordered in there by the EI. I've got just 3 regular orders in Group 1, and 3 orders and 3 regular orders in Group 2. No command tokens left whatsoever. I've been reforming links and, turning irregulars into regulars, so it hasn't worked out. But with the regulars in Group 2, I'm moving the Noctifer into such a position that he can shoot at the sensor bot here. And the point of doing that is that I've got nothing else to spend the orders on anyway, and if the Noctifer does this, it allows me to move in with a Malignus or the Fractar without getting hit by a flash pulse, and if I get blinded, I might not be able to pick up the objective. Now, luckily, finally rolling a hit with the Noctifer, obliterating the sensor bot, and things can move on. Now, the Malignos can appear from hidden deployment. That's a free order. It can't be spent anywhere else, so I moved forward just to see how far I would get. And I realized that if I continued by spending another order to get to this position here, and then a final order to move around here to the objective and actually pick up the objective. Sorry, I've got my camera in the way. So if I spend the first order getting to this point here, and then go and pick it up, there's going to be a line of sight to his Half-Staff Lieutenant. Now, worst case scenario is that I move around, I'm revealed by picking up the marker, he shoots a combi rifle, maybe we find out that, well, let's say long range and TO camo, he needs a 2 to hit. If he rolls that 2, then that's game over. Whereas if I can think of some other way to do that, then I could win automatically. There is a solution though. The Fractar appears with its own order. We've got exactly 3 orders to spend on it. So what does that look like? I think you guys can see what I'm seeing. The first short skill takes him to here, and the second short skill takes him to exactly this point here. So that's 8 inches. The second one takes him to here, and then takes him to here with the other short skill, and he's exactly in this position, which puts him within 4-inch reach of the objective. At that point, he can, so you can see the 8-inch there. So that's the first, order. And then he ends up here after 2 orders. He's got 1 left. Now, obviously, the distance between here and here is less than 4 inches, so he's able to go up and pick it up. Now, he gets a free shot at me with his Hafsa, but I've got that transmutation ability where even 1 wound won't actually remove this model. So we're ending the game with Combined Army in possession of 1 supply. No classifieds have been completed, no HVTs have been secured, but with 1 supply crate to 0, Combined Army win it with plenty of objective points completed. Tense game though. I played quite poorly with the positioning of that Unidron Link team as I was attacking. I could have just been a bit more conservative and not tried to be greedy and lose all of those Unidrons, and had a much more solid defensive effect, and I could have kept my lieutenant alive. He was a little bit sloppy with attacking with the Rajik. He'd have been better off in the first turn just throwing his smoke grenades over, using all the orders in the Hunzaguts, just trying to bring them back as far as possible, and then just defending. That would have been the better strategy. I might still have been able to beat him, but that would have been better. He definitely shouldn't have putting out the mine where he knew there was a missile launcher there, and even deploying Tariq right next to the bot when he knew that he was up against Onyx and potentially Noctiva missile launchers. Had he not done that, then maybe he would have had Tariq to actually attack me with later on the game. So there were some mistakes both sides, but quite a tough game, quite an explosive game, action-packed. Hope you guys enjoyed it. We'll be back with you with some more infiNity pretty soon. Stick around for that. See you again soon, guys.